they see value in technology that we're building that can really change how they do business on a daily basis. And I think breaking through to a few of these, you'll naturally just see the floodgates open for all government data to be on chain, which would be amazing and would save us a lot of time and money and aggravation as citizens.
This episode is brought to you by Uphold, which is a great crypto platform that makes it easy to buy, sell, and stake crypto assets. Uphold has over 300 plus cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin and all the top altcoins, and they offer a crypto staking on over 19 crypto assets. I've been a user of the platform for many years. They are safe and reliable. They don't commingle or lend out your crypto funds, and they are 100% reserved. You can review their transparency report. Uphold also offers an amazing rewards program where you can earn up to 5.25% on stablecoins. This rewards program also allows you to get 24-hour early access to new tokens that they list. And to participate, you just simply have to open the app once per month, deposit $50 once per month, and trade $50 once per month. And the stablecoins that they support includes Ripple's RLUSD. You can earn up to 5% on that stablecoin and 5.25% on USBC. So if you'd like to learn more about Uphold and all the great services they offer, visit the link in the description. Hey everybody, welcome into the Thinking Crypto podcast. I'm your host, Tony Edward, and joining me today is Luigi D'Onorio DeMeo, who is the Chief Strategy Officer at Ava Labs. Luigi, great to have you on.
Thank you for having me, Tony, and good job pronouncing the name correctly. It's not easy.
Yeah, I'm really happy to have you on because there's a lot happening with Avalanche, and I'm an Avax token holder. I have been for a long time. I'm bullish on the ecosystem and the chain and much more. So really excited to dive into all the latest and greatest. But tell us a bit about yourself, where you're from and what's your professional background.
Sure. I grew up in New Jersey, and basically graduated with a finance degree. I started my career after the financial crisis at Citigroup. Worked there for about 6.5 years or so, many different functions within the company. So I started out more on the operational side of things. So that's where I have a pretty interesting appreciation for, the downstream effects of finance. But then eventually went to move and trade on the institutional desk. I traded CDX, which is an index of credit default swaps, and then I also traded equities. So I had a good experience trading different things on the institutional side. But always had a passion for markets, so it was a natural place for me to start my career. And then eventually, when my daughter was about to be born or was being born, I decided I wanted a change in career. I left and I went into consulting, but with the eye towards getting more into crypto. This is more like 2016 or 2017 or so. Ended up eventually doing my own startup in crypto in 2017.
Mm.
We were basically building this app to curate news online, right? So he used the wisdom of crowds, different Schelling points, and reminder, this is before Uniswap or Oracles or or any blockchain that can do any TPS at all.
Sure.
And uh, and we learned. I learned a ton going down each and every rabbit hole of crypto. Homomorphic encryption, different like trade-offs that you make for commit reveal schemes on blockchain. Like I ended up like mentally exercising all the different things that you need to do to like understand how to build in crypto. Um, and then that eventually didn't work out because I think we were just way too early for a social app and,
Oh,
8 years
sure.
ago. It's
Yeah.
still maybe early. Um, and then when DeFi really started to spring about, it was a natural marrying of the different things I was interested in my life. Finance, crypto, markets, etc. And so I dove into DeFi pretty deeply, and then eventually joined Ava Labs to lead the DeFi efforts was my first role here. And then we started with the Avalanche Rush program and everything like that. So that's like a pretty quick background of sort of the career, but yeah.
Your journey from working in TradFi, working at Citibank and much more, and then going to crypto, do you see that as a kind of a natural evolution that this is the way the puck is heading and finance is being changed because of blockchain?
Yeah, I mean, especially if you were on the operational side of things.
Mhm.
Whereas if you're on the trading side of things, I was on both, but if you're on the trading side of things, like I think you're just interested in trading different assets, and crypto's a fun and interesting asset to trade. And so naturally, a lot of people get excited by it. But if you're on the operational or tech side of things, you really got to appreciate how poor the technological systems in TradFi are. And the basically there are 50 years of mergers and acquisitions and systems that have been patched together that don't work, frankly.
Mm.
And it's once you get inside and you see that, it's like fascinating. And once you start to understand the benefits of tokenization, the benefits of blockchains and moving value at scale, you can see how this will actually be a real big benefit for the existing system. And probably the only way you can change the system is to have something that's completely different and new versus trying to continue to patch together and amend the existing system. So I think, given my background, it was really interesting to kind of see the benefits, especially when DeFi started to really proliferate, seeing lending platforms and automated market makers. Those are natural things we would have built on the desk had we had those tools. So I think that was natural. And I think a lot of people that I'm seeing coming into the space and doing well in the space are from TradFi. And
Yeah.
they're just talented people looking to be inspired. And that industry, in a lot of ways, became and felt more like utility industry over time, especially after the regulation. So it was a lot less fun post Dodd-Frank.
Mm. Now, with the move towards tokenization, putting TradFi assets, stocks, different commodities, even real estate on the blockchain, do you see that eliminating some of the positions, if you want to call it that, in that TradFi world of traders and these folks? It kind of cuts down the need for those folks, or does it enhance it, and you need to keep them on there because you're going to move these assets into a global market?
It's a great question. I don't know if I see less traders. In fact, what blockchains provide is moving value, and so I think there's more things to trade effectively.
Sure.
I do think there'll be efficiencies created on the operational side of things, and if that leads to, redundancy in roles, that's something that TradFi has been doing for 20 years anyway. And so I think what will likely occur is we'll have less operational errors. All right.
Mm.
We still read about, Citigroup. I forget how much money they sent to the wrong bank at one time, and it took them years to recover. But like, we still see operational errors and I saw many of them in person that can be, that a new system can help alleviate a good amount. So I think there'll be potentially less jobs there, but a more efficient system with less errors that people will be happier about. So, and I think but then like there will be a lot of other industries that get spawn up because of that.
Mm.
Um, because of the composability of blockchains and assets, there may just be new things that we haven't thought about. Just like securitization became something new for TradFi, and then spawned off the whole MBS and that whole market. I do think you'll have new Lego pieces that emerge, and people can create new markets, and that's effectively what we're trying to do.
Oh, that absolutely makes sense. Yeah, I've thought a bit about this and how if you put a lot of these assets on the blockchain, you create secondary and tertiary markets, and then you have true 24/7, 365 days a year trading, which I don't know how we're going to handle it. Maybe AI comes into when we're sleeping. Some of our trades can be done by
Or
AI while the other side is trading against it. I don't know.
yeah, I often debate to myself whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, 24/7 markets, but I think naturally it's a good thing. I still think there'll be periods of like illiquid markets on weekends and stuff like that. But if somebody really needs to move, they can move some liquidity, which would be good.
Yeah, it's Such an interesting world we're heading to. It's a brave new world, and I'm curious how this all plays out. But let's talk about Avalanche and all the great things that are happening. Before we actually get to that, give an overview of Ava Labs and what you guys do, so for folks who may not know.
Sure. So Ava Labs is a US-based company that is the inventor of the Avalanche blockchain, right? So started out of Cornell University with Emin Sears, the founder, and they came to market with a new consensus mechanism that basically allowed for really low latency, meaning really fast transactions, but while being able to have a very large decentralized validator set. So that's what Avalanche came to market with in terms of like the new first innovation it brought to the space. And it ultimately launched with three chains. There was the X chain, P chain, and C chain. Ultimately, a lot of the activity right now happens on the C chain, which is an EVM compatible chain that you can do DeFi, launch smart contracts on, etc. But when it came to market, it had a decidedly faster feel to it. All right. So, using Ethereum because of at the time it was proof of work, but even now it's still a slower consensus on proof of stake. It felt longer to issue and execute transactions. When Avalanche launched with EVM, it was using your favorite apps like Aave, Uniswap, etc., that you experienced on Ethereum, but instant finality on the transaction when you executed it. So that was initially how it came to market. But Avalanche has always been here to bring a vision that the world will need millions of blockchains, and Avalanche is a network designed to allow people to launch their own blockchains while having its own opinionated one, which is the one I've just mentioned, the C chain. So, oh, go ahead, please.
I was going to ask you a quick question. So are those subnets? Because I've read about subnets and they can be private or they can be
Yep.
not private, I guess.
Yeah, so what were previously known as Avalanche subnets has been, after the upgrade at the end of 2024, called the Avalanche 9000 upgrade. Basically, what was formerly known as subnets, where you had to stake 2000 Avax and also validate the primary network, was sort of relaxed a bit. And what now we market and what now we have out there are called Avalanche L1s. Avalanche L1s don't have to require each validator stake to the primary network. Instead, there's a pay-as-you-go fee in Avax that's burnt on a continuous basis in order to validate. But these are now sovereign, completely sovereign chains, right? So you might have seen the announcements from MapleStory, which is a very old and famous Korean game. They launched an L1 on Avalanche. You might have seen the announcement from Inversion and Santiago, who's on the Empire podcast, about him launching his own L1 on Avalanche. These are all sovereign networks that are able to interoperate and communicate with each other. And that's like the grand vision, right? The world's going to need millions of blockchains. Avalanche will be the one to facilitate all of those different independent networks that can communicate with each other.
I want to make sure I wrap my head around this and also for the
Sure.
listeners. So with Ethereum, you have these layer twos, right? Is this similar to creating a layer two or is it different?
In practice, layer twos are blockchains. And so Ethereum enables people to basically build these layer two blockchains that settle up to Ethereum.
Mm.
Avalanche takes a different approach. It does not put you a layer below the stack. It puts you directly in the stack. So you have a layer one blockchain that has its own validator set that accrues all the value to your own community and your own digital economy. All right. And because it's not a layer two, and because of Avalanche's fast finality, you can have the interoperability out of the box, which is something the Ethereum community is like trying to grapple with. Like, how do we
Right.
have interoperability amongst L2s? It's not, they were clearly conceived with the notion that interoperability wasn't going to be needed because it's kind of like a bolt on to the side now, trying to enable that. So Avalanche from the beginning was there's going to be a lot of different economies. There'll be chains that are doing sports. There will be chains that are doing video games. There are going to be tokenization chains. There are going to be banks. There's going to be all different types of digital economies, right? And they want to have their own economies, and we're going to let them. But we're going to allow them to tap into number one, very rich and robust ecosystem on the C chain, which has all the native integrations like a Binance, a Coinbase, Oracles, all that kind of stuff you can leverage out of the box. And it's going to have the ability to connect and work with each and every other blockchain with interoperability and communication. So, as an example, MapleStory launched their own L1 blockchain on Avalanche, and Binance and these other exchanges didn't need to integrate their L1 chain directly, right? They launched the token on the C chain, right, which is they're already integrated, and MapleStory can leverage the interoperability, and the user doesn't even know that it's going through another chain to kind of get to the L1. So you're able to get to market faster, and you're able to spend a lot less money on these integrations, which is, I think, a key value proposition that will continue to show over time. Because if you launch an L2, you don't have that benefit right now.
Very interesting. And let's say I'm a gaming company and I launch on what my own blockchain, so to speak, on in the Avalanche network. Um, do I can I issue my own token?
Yeah. So you can have your own gas token, you can have your own staking token. If you really zoomed out, you can say like MapleStory wants to launch an L1 blockchain. They want to be an L1. What can they do? They can, fork the EVM or move VM or whatever blockchain they want, maintain everything themselves, and launch their own blockchain by themselves and maintain it and all the complexity embedded therein. Or they can go use Avalanche's stack, launch an L1 directly, have interoperability connected with not only the other L1s, but also importantly the C chain. And then, obviously there are a bunch of providers that help people launch L1 blockchains on Avalanche. There's Ava Cloud, there's Gelato, there's Zeev, all these like providers that are now helping you get to market much faster. So I think if you want to launch your own chain, you can do it much faster. And having experts actually manage the stack versus trying to do that all yourself would be much more expensive.
Mm. Now, I've noticed recently that a lot of gaming folks are building on Avalanche. Tell us about that. Is it because of the speed and the low transaction fees and things like that?
It's a good point. We did, I guess, as a team, have an opinion on gaming early on, so we definitely prioritized it as a vertical, and we did some earlier deals and some earlier BD that eventually brought some of these games to market. But I do think it's that combined with the fact that these games want their own chains. They're full digital game economies and they know that they'll be able to monetize, quote unquote, like they'll be able to make more money by having their own chains versus exporting that value to somebody else. And that's where you see Gonzilla has its own chain with the off the grid game that's on PlayStation and Xbox. MapleStory has their own chain. They're seeing similar things. We've had recent announcements with the new Pixelmon games and other ones coming as well. So we view Avalanche as enabling people to have their own digital economies, and gaming is a perfect example of that, right? And I think if I remember correctly, Vitalik started Ethereum because of World of Warcraft having an issue. That was like one of his inspirations. And it's because like, these games that have centralized servers where you don't actually own the assets, but you work so hard to earn them is not a great outcome. And so I think Avalanche can power these games, and we're already seeing great traction for some of them. And MapleStory NFTs are selling for, I think I saw one yesterday for $16,000.
Wow.
So there are people, grinding these games and trying to make, money, but ultimately we're the stack that enables them to get to market, and we hope people see that and continue to deploy new chains.
Mm, that's really great. What are your thoughts on Game 5, Web3 gaming, and when it may have that? viral moment, maybe a Farmville type moment, right? You're the Facebook, let's say, as using the analogy, and these games can be built on there very easily. But we haven't seen kind of the mass penetration of like, hey, I want to play this game and I can earn these NFTs. Don't get me wrong, these games are making progress, so I'm not saying there's no progress, but I'm waiting for that viral moment where it's like, oh, wow, I need to check this out. It's a Web3 game.
Yeah, I think ideally they don't think of it as a Web3 game. And this has been the approach from Gonzilla and Off the Grid since the beginning, which is you never think about the crypto aspect until you get deep into the game and you wanna make money, right? Like,
Mm,
the dad is tired of buying the Fortnite, whatever it's called, or me, I'm always buying Robux for my
yeah.
son's game. Um, they start to get deep into the game and they realize like, oh, okay, like there's this added feature I can actually make money, but that's not the dominant feature of the game, right? So. I think Gonzilla, has gotten the closest to sort of having the aha moment, which is because it's a free to play game on PS5 and Xbox, and so it's just in your face, right? Like I could tell my neighbor, hey, go play this game. He doesn't have to have a wallet. He doesn't have to, or she doesn't have to have any of that stuff, and they can get going real fast. And so I think that was like the first like slow onboarding, and then with MapleStory, you're seeing that probably more outside of the US, but you're starting to see people play with that. I don't know. I don't know when we'll see that major unlock, but I do feel very much that it's coming. And from somebody who's been observing, been involved, purchased my first cryptocurrency in 2010, so it's been a long time. A lot of times it can feel like we're not making progress as an industry. But if you like take a deep breath and look back, 4 years ago, BlackRock was not on chain.
Yeah.
Like there's all these things, right, that have changed. We're now tokenizing US government bonds on chain. We have games that are on PlayStation and Xbox on chain. We actually now can support the scale of different blockchain of actually different transactions, whereas before we couldn't actually do that. And so I think we're making progress, and most people want it to be faster than it is.
Yeah, I think we're sometimes in the crypto space, we want it to move as fast as possible. We get a bit impatient, and there's it's financial incentive, of course. But as someone who loves this technology in the space, I just want to see the adoption because I see the benefits. But I know the average Joe and Jane, they're not. It hasn't reached them yet, but it will. As all technologies in the S curve adoption, it will reach them at some point, and there will be something that pulls them in.
There was an interesting stat that I heard. More people in the United States own crypto than own dogs.
Wow.
And I will say there's a big difference in terms of the amount of people that I meet that know of crypto versus like 5 years ago, where it was very, very few and far between. But I think it's more like they just own some, like they just own some crypto, right? They don't know that they're users yet. And I think that's ideally the outcome is that they never know that they're users directly, and that's not the sell. The sell should just be a great product. And it happens to have these ancillary benefits that crypto provides.
Absolutely. And do you think the other aspect is interoperability with like some of the assets that you can own in the game? There's not necessarily interoperability in the real world, meaning that I can't easily convert it and go buy something on Amazon, that type of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Like part of the vision of our network is that everybody has their own digital economies, like I mentioned, and that, there's interoperability embedded therein. You can think of really interesting things that can be done with, different enterprises collaborating on partnerships, right? Like, so McDonald's chain can airdrop to, Monopoly chain and do some interesting collaboration with both of them. And I think that all of that you'll see. You can because it's all on chain and one of the things that blockchains provides people that nobody I feel like is not something that's uh, talked about a lot, but it's data structure consistency. It's basically like we're all using the same data structure, and because of that, it's really easy. It's really easy to work together technically, right? Like I already understand your API and I can build smart contracts on top of yours. It's like we're talking a universal language. Whereas in Web 2, that's much more difficult. You know, some people have things on spreadsheets. They send you data in a different format that your team needs to then, recompile and analyze, etc. So I think that's part of what you'll see. The other thing, and I think MapleStory is going to intend to do this, and also potentially the FIFA chain. I'm not sure if they've revealed that yet or not, but is the ability to use existing IP, but allow people and different third-party developers to build apps on that IP. And I think that's really another composable thing. Like imagine you had Pokemon Chain and people wanted to build different Pokemon games directly on that IP on that chain. You know, you can kind of have a really robust economy of different things that people can build, and you can scale past just your enterprise building products for people. And then you could probably also monetize that IP in different ways. So there's going to be new businesses and economies built in this industry. That not in this industry, but from this industry that will enable things from the existing ones.
That's fascinating. That is something even personally, I may want to look into as a
Yeah,
podcast brand. How can I build that type of network? And then, you have these laws, Metcalfe's law, Reed's law, and it's kind of like Reddit. You have the subreddits and all these little communities, and then you can monetize it and have the blockchain power all of it.
exactly. That's how you build network effects. Like if you need to build everything for everybody, like you're a company selling a product, and that's fine. But if you are, in the realm of Warcraft, Pokemon, Facebook, Twitter, well, X, then you can sort of get network effects by allowing other people to build on the different things that you have. Like imagine Facebook's social graph, how many people could build interesting things on it if they were able to open up components of it. So I think that's going to be the future that Web3 enables. Um, and people will not appreciate it while it's happening, but will look back and be like, oh, wow, that was what it enabled. But it'll take time to get there.
Hmm. Now you mentioned FIFA, huge announcement that you guys
Yeah.
have formed a partnership with FIFA and one of the world's most recognized sports brands. Tell us a bit about what their goal and mission is. Is it kind of along the lines of what you're talking about, building a community in this Web3 world, have better connection with fans and so forth?
Yeah, I mean, the announcement was purposefully not with a ton of detail. And basically, the first, like what I can say is that they did launch their Avalanche L1 blockchain.
Mm.
It is live. You can check it out. And right now, FIFA Collect is the first deployment on that blockchain. So basically, there are a number of things you can do on FIFA Collect. You can buy different, uh, basically like player cards, trade them on the secondary marketplace and have fun with that kind of stuff. Or, one thing that people are doing right now is I think they're buying NFTs that give you a right to the ticket of the World Cup in the US in 26. So
Wow.
it's kind of like for anybody who follows football, PSL, but for tickets. So that's like something that people are playing around with. I know that they do. My understanding is they have more plans outside of just this on the chain, and like this is the FIFA sovereign blockchain. And so I think as time goes on, they'll be introducing more and more use cases on the chain and hoping to get more engagement from people. And yes, so what is not only the largest event in the world, but one of the most widely viewed sports worldwide as well. So we're very proud to have worked for probably about 2 years plus now on this. And I think that's one of the big differences you'll find with Avalanche versus other folks out there. We do take a very long-term approach in what we're doing.
That's great. And as you're saying that, I thought of you're targeting two of the largest demographic buckets or cohorts, whatever you want to call them, in sports and in gaming. I mean, it's huge, right? It's worldwide. And if you able to get these big brands and associations and teams and things like that to come on chain, it's going to be much easier to bring more people on chain. If we're headed into the direction of getting billions, because it's going to be things they're familiar with. So there's less friction, right? I don't trust what this is. Oh, I know FIFA. I know this game, right? It's going to be easier for them to come on chain.
That's the thesis. I mean, I would never spar at crypto native innovation. I led DeFi at Avalanche, right? So I'm pretty crypto native. I love using all new apps on chain. But if we're going to bring adoption to this technology, if we don't have a runaway app startup that just like blows everybody's, you know, minds. And I don't think Pump Fun is that. While I do appreciate it, I don't think that that's going to be the breakthrough app.
Right.
Then what we need to do is we need to as Santiago says, we need to bring real GDP on chain. Like we need to actually bring actual use cases that people are doing, put the blockchain backend in there, right? Like use stable coins, for example, in different applications, and then you'll have a ton of users and a ton of distribution to then upsell naturally the new applications that are built in crypto. But you need that core audience first. And so we feel that once we can bring these core audiences, people building on Avalanche will be excited to build here because they'll be able to leverage that distribution.
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. I wanted to ask you about a big news item that we heard recently, and that's $290 billion in government real estate to be tokenized on Avalanche in our state, New Jersey, in Bergen County. Tell us about this and how this partnership came about.
Yeah, the team working on this is called Balcony. We invested and worked with them. I think it's almost 3 years now. So another very long endeavor. And they secured a contract from the Bergen County clerk, to which I was there in person last week for the press conference. And that was a lot of fun. And basically, they secured I believe it's 5-year contract, paid contract with the Bergen County clerk to work through and put all these different assets on chain. Balcony has their own L1 on Avalanche, right?
Mm,
And because it has their own L1 on Avalanche, and this is the use case that they're targeting, they have restrictions in terms of the chain isn't private, but it allows different there's different jurisdictions that can validate the chain, et cetera. So you're able to do some guarding at the chain level, which is important for some of these governments. Obviously, this data is sensitive. But you can imagine this is the first step, right? Tokenizing the deeds and therefore the actual ownership of an asset like real estate, which is one of the largest assets in the world, you're then able to put and build different building blocks on top of that, right? So, different escrow contracts when you actually transfer and actually complete a sale of real estate. Taxes can be paid automatically via the smart contracts on these things. So there are a lot of building blocks that can be built on top. But the first thing you need to do is bring the data on chain. Until it's on chain, none of this happens. And so Balcony will be working in multiple phases, and this will take time, to kind of get this. But I think it's a big deal that, one of the largest counties, richest counties in the United States, frankly, has decided to embark on this effort. And, not so much so that it's not like they're just doing a pilot. They already did the pilot.
mm.
Right? Like this is a paid contract that they're willing to stand behind, and they see value in technology that we're building that can really change how they do business on a daily basis. And I think breaking through to a few of these, you'll naturally just see the floodgates open for all government data to be on chain, which would be amazing and would save us a lot of time and money and aggravation as citizens.
Absolutely. And, Luigi, I actually shared this news with a lot of friends and family, people who are still like skeptics about blockchain and crypto, because they read headlines, sensational headlines. They're like, wow, that's amazing. It was close to home. It was New Jersey, it was New York. And, the governments, local governments involved. And then they're like, Whoa, okay. You kind of have my attention here, and it's just amazing to see this type and level of adoption. It's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, for myself as well, like I have a lot of friends that, and family who don't understand crypto. Whenever Bitcoin goes down, they ask me if I'm going to be okay. Like this is kind of the relationship. But when they see things like they don't totally understand it. But I think it's like an extra data point for them. They're like, okay, like, wow, what Luigi's doing isn't a scam, and there's no other way to say it. Like that
Yeah.
is that's kind of what, unfortunately, the industry put itself in a position where it has to like climb out of this, the way it's viewed. But I think for Avalanche in particular, part of our strategy was doing these types of things, and in part because it shows that we are serious. Like not many chains take a 3-year view for a project. That takes a lot of time, effort, that you could be doing other short-term games on, like many other competitors do.
Yeah, absolutely. And well said. It's the marathon, not the sprint, right? We've seen a lot of folks who come out sprinting just trying to get token prices higher, and then they collapse and burn, and they don't do things the right way.
They're in the
Um,
token selling game. That's kind of what I call it. Like their business is, how do I sell these tokens?
yeah.
And that's unfortunate. Hopefully, we see less of that over time.
Oh, for sure. I'd love to get your thoughts on with real estate tokenization. Do you envision that eventually you're going to have land and real estate tokenized where people around the world can buy these tokens like they do part of Avax token or a fraction of Bitcoin or whatever it is, and they can hold those tokens and then they can do DeFi with it, or they can sell it at a later time. But it just opens up more liquidity for these real estate assets, and it allows more people to be able to participate.
Totally. I mean, I don't know if I would fractionalize my own home. But I could see an apartment building owner fractionalizing that property. I could see, a corporation that owns, a very select portfolio in different areas, and people wanting to buy a piece of that. And then, with that piece of that asset, they can borrow against it. Like, the whole idea of DeFi is this permissionless finance allows people to kind of do these things, and get more liquidity and be more capital efficient. I'm not sure if everybody's going to want to fractionalize their home, but I do still think that having that on chain is useful. And like anytime you need to go, fill out documents for something, you have the deed to your fingertips, right? You're not scanning it from a piece of paper that you have in a safe box. You have all these things that you can easily send. Not only that, but when you complete the sale, you don't wait 3 weeks to get the new deed from the county clerk, right? It's just issued upon the sale. Maybe that is not a great thing for escrow attorneys one day, right? Because that's their whole job. Is
Yeah.
like I hold the money and while we're waiting for the sale to complete. That could be a smart contract. These are the original things we talked about in like 2016 in this industry. And I don't think they were wrong in terms of like, this is what we're going to build with this technology. I just think it's taken a lot longer. And a lot of these things that we're building require the cooperation of large entities like governments and like corporations and like regulation being the enabler to allow them to feel comfortable adopting it. And so um, I think we've always kind of been on the right path as an industry. It's just it takes time because you need these enablers to feel comfortable with the technology.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. Those components are so critical to have a well-functioning market around these things. But I tell you, man, if they tokenize the Empire State Building or a new developer is building somewhere in Manhattan or
Yeah,
Hong Kong or Miami, places where there's
people would run it.
scarcity, right? I'm gonna buy some of those real estate tokens, man.
Because it's complicated to buy, an apartment in NYC and in New York City and, think of it as an investment property. Number one, it's a lot of work,
Yeah.
and risk. But two, it's just a ton of capital, from one person. So yeah, like I could totally see there being companies that their whole business is buying real estate in select locations and fractionalizing it. I could totally see that being a business. Just like there are REITs out there that basically fractionalize rent distribution from different companies out there, right? Like they're allowing you to tap into that cash flow. So I think it'll be similar, but a more transparent way.
Oh, for sure. I know we're running up on time, so I wanted to ask what's on your roadmap, as much as you can share, of course.
Oh, good question. So, I mean, on the technical roadmap, Avalanche will continue to work on single chain performance. We already enable people to launch their own L1s seamlessly. We already have interoperability. We'll continue to sort of tweak at the edges on that kind of stuff. But the next major thing we're focused on is single chain performance, predominantly to start on the C chain, right? So that's making the C chain one of the fastest chains out there, that can support the most amount of capacity, that can do that at the lowest fees possible. The reason that's important is, as I mentioned, the C chain is integral and important to being a launch pad for people launching their own L1s. If it's not scalable, if it's not cheap, if it's not fast, it's not going to be really good at enabling people. And so right now, it's already had two upgrades in the last 6 months that have lowered fees about 96%. We're already
Wow.
seeing capacity really grow, and I think by the end of the year, it'll be one of the most performant chains out there. So that's the focus on the technical side. On the business side, and on sort of the other aspect, ecosystem building, et cetera. We're looking for people to launch their own L1 blockchains. We're looking for people to launch applications on the C chain. We'll continue to focus on the verticals that we think are really important. That's institutional and capital markets and tokenization. That's gaming, regulated gambling and things like that, which is also a really good use case as well. And then, like we mentioned, with sports, we think that's also loyalty points. We think that's a really important use case. So we'll continue to try and be professional stewards of blockchain, and get adoption and bring that adoption on chain.
It's great stuff. And we'll have, I think the next one we got to try to do in person as, these things come to
Love it.
fruition. And
Yeah.
it'd be great to do it in person with you. I wanted to get your take on the changing environment in the United States around crypto. Obviously, much more pro crypto now. Congress is on the cusp of passing stablecoin legislation. There's market structure as well. The SEC is kind of stepped back and they're trying to provide guidance and approving ETFs and much more. What are your thoughts on all these things and how that will impact building and innovation?
Yeah, I mean, it has been a grind over the last 4 years building in this industry. I'm not gonna lie, it's been, at times felt persecuted, and I think our founder revealed at the summit that he was debanked, and this kind of stuff. So it was not a good environment. There was no reason for it, and it's happened. I'm happy to see that there is bipartisan common sense in terms of people understanding that this is a technology, this is a new industry, this is an opportunity for America. And that's a great thing. So it's very welcome. Obviously, with that, we really need to bring it over the finish line. We need to get some of this legislation passed. But like my view from the very beginning was there was a natural sort of regulatory arbitrage happening with crypto. And crypto was a response to, in my opinion, overregulation of a ton of industries, predominantly the securities industry, and how capital formation happens. And I think what you'll see is because enough people care about this technology and crypto, now there's an impetus to create laws around it rather than before when nobody cared. It's like, well, let's fit this into our existing laws, and I don't think that quite worked. And it's a natural push-pull where people are basically voting and saying like, hey, like we actually think that capital formation can be better.
Mm.
And I think crypto is a natural, obviously, extension of that. So it's a very welcome to see. It's very welcome to see a new tone. The industry has to feel responsibility to doing the right thing to ensure that we don't blow it, frankly. But yeah, it makes building in the space much easier.
I bet. Yeah, it's complete 180 from how things were going in the past 4 years. All right, I got some wrap-up questions here for you.
Okay.
First, if you could create your own metaverse, what would the theme be?
Pokemon.
Nice. If rapid fire questions, favorite food,
Favorite food. I always love like a seafood pasta dish, like a seafood risotto or something like that.
favorite musician or band,
This is controversial. Brand new. Probably a lot of people won't know them, but they were always my favorite band.
mm. Favorite movie,
Interstellar.
great one. Favorite book.
Green Lights. Matthew McConaughey.
I don't think I've heard of it, but I'll check.
Oh, you should totally and get the audiobook. It's much better. Listen to it from his version. I think it's
Oh,
great.
I'll definitely check that out. And then when you're not working at Ava Labs, what are you doing for fun?
Um, Hanging out with my kids, playing sports with my kids. Yeah, that's what I love to do.
Nice. Luigi, like I said, we're gonna have to do the next one in person. Really
Yeah,
great stuff. I love what Avalanche is doing, but thank you so much for joining me.
awesome. Thank you for the time, and this was fantastic.